Okay, this is fresh. Okay. As you can see, and as you probably know, that Aptis is computer-based. The whole thing is on the computer, okay? It's not like Cambridge Advanced where you sit and talk to an examiner. It's all on the computer. Okay. Reading and listening are automatic results, which means that it's actually done by a computer. So the results are done by a computer. The exam is looked at by the computer, not by a person. But the writing and speaking are in fact evaluated by a human being. So they are by a person. Okay. When you come to do the exam, it's very important to pay attention to the instructions when you first come in. When you first go into the room, they will give you a sheet of paper on which you have your name, okay, and your details. You have to make sure that your details are correct. You'll also be given codes. The codes are for the exams, for the different aspects of the exam, and also a personal code for you. Okay, so be very careful with the instructions. Okay, if you have any problems, there is a supervisor. I should say that I've done the teacher's exam and I've done the advanced exam. Okay, and when I did it, there were 2 supervisors. So if you have any problems, ask them. Okay, they speak English and Spanish, so you have no problem if you want to speak to them in Spanish. Okay, familiarize yourself with the system. I think you can familiarize yourself with the system. You can do this by doing a full practice test. You can find this test online. You have to sign up to do it. I don't know if any of you have done it. Has anybody tried it? I recommend doing it. Okay, not necessarily for the questions, but to do the test itself, so you have some idea of what the test is like. Okay. Okay. Here at the beginning, the importance of the audio and microphone test. The first part that you actually do is the speaking. Okay. When I came here, there were a lot of us, and there'll probably be a lot of you when you do it. They divide you into 2 groups. They take one group up, they do the speaking, then they come back down, and then the second group go up and do the speaking. And before you do the speaking and the listening, which is the next, you must test the microphone and the headphones. Okay. Here, speak clearly into the microphone. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that. I'm sure you're all going to do that anyway. Okay. What does it evaluate? It evaluates your reading, okay, how good you are at reading, your writing, your speaking and listening, and your knowledge of grammar and vocabulary. So they're the things that are tested. As I said before, it's the speaking and listening that you do first. The other parts, the other components, you choose in which order you wish to do them. So it's up to you, okay? Okay, as it says, all students do the same test, all candidates do the same test, but you get different results because it is, of course, like a level test. The exam is like a level test. It's not like Cambridge where you pass or fail. You're given a grade depending on how well you do in the exam. Okay, so here. Okay, let me look here, sorry. So listening and reading and grammar and vocabulary are reported on a numerical scale from 0 to 50. Okay, and the speaking, writing, listening and reading are reported as a common Euro framework of reference for languages, which is from A1 to C. This is in the general. Okay, so it does not differentiate between C1 and C2 in the general and the teachers. Okay, that difference is in the advanced. When you do the advanced, you can then get C1 or C2. Okay. Okay, here as you can see, so the grammar and the vocabulary. Grammar and vocabulary is 25 minutes. Okay, the exam lasts, or this part of the exam lasts for 25 minutes. The scoring is out of 50. There are 50 items. There are 25 grammar questions and 25 vocabulary questions. Okay. The speaking test lasts for 12 minutes, and there are 4 parts to it. Okay, the writing again. Here you have 50 minutes for the writing, and it's 4 different parts. Okay, all right. As you'll see in a moment when we get to those parts, I'll show you the different parts. But the first part of it is easy, and it gets more and more complicated. As I say, I did the advanced exam, and I finished with about 30 seconds to spare. So you have to watch the time. You have to be careful with the time. The listening lasts between 25 and 50 minutes. So this is up to you. As you'll see, you can do the test, you can do the listenings once or twice. Again, there are 25 items, okay, 25 different listenings. The reading is 30 minutes, and there are 4 different readings. Okay, here. No, wrong button. Here, this is typical of the grammar. Okay, as you can see, so you have to, so he, and then you choose between the 3 items, which is the correct one. Okay, it's not that they go from easy to difficult, they change, so one can be more difficult than the others. It's not that they get progressively more difficult. Okay, I keep pressing the wrong one. Here, you can go to the British Council, to the web page, to the website, and there are different apps that you can download to practice. Okay, you can go to the web page and look there. Okay, just write in British Council on your computer and you'll find the different sections that you need. Okay, here is the grammar. I keep pressing the wrong one. Okay, here with the grammar, you have 4 different parts. Okay, on the first part, you match a definition to a word. So I can't make that any bigger. I'll make it bigger for myself. So you need to match a definition. If you look here, you have, you click on the part on the green part on the right there, and the list of words comes down. It's exactly the same list for each word. Okay, so you choose the correct word. Okay, for part 2, here you need to complete a sentence by selecting the correct word. In part 3, you find a word with a similar meaning to the target word. Okay, so it's like a synonym for that word. Whereas in part 4, you need to find the word that goes with the word. So for example, they will give you, for example, bear, and then they'll give you a list again, and so it goes with wall, for example. Okay, I think the example here they give you is birthday cake rather than a blue cake, or something like this. Okay, the Learn English website has almost 20 different games, activities, and apps for vocabulary. Again, go to the site, look at it. Okay, you can download the different apps so you can practice. Okay, as it says here, another useful tip is to take note of interesting words or word combinations when you read English text. I think the word combination is the key thing here. Rather than if you see a word, okay, do not just make a note of the word, but make a note of the word and the preposition that goes with it or whatever. This is a good way of learning. Okay, that's the grammar and vocab. The thing with the grammar and vocab as well is that they will only look at the grammar and vocab if you are a borderline. So if you're a borderline between a B2 and a C is when they will look at the grammar and vocab. If you're very clearly B2 all the way through, they won't even bother looking at the grammar and vocab. Okay, it's only if you're a borderline that they actually check the grammar and vocab. Okay, writing. There are 4 parts, excuse me. In part 1, here you have 50 minutes. Which I've got it there. Yeah. In part 1, you need to complete a form by filling in some basic personal information, normally individual words, and you have 3 minutes. Okay? As we'll see in a minute, it's very easy. Part 2, complete a form, but this time in sentences. Here you have 7 minutes. Part 3 is a social network type interaction, a chat, you receive 3 questions and have to respond. 10 minutes. You don't actually have 3 minutes or 7 minutes. It's this recommended time. Okay, so you don't have to spend 3 minutes doing it. And if you spend longer, the trouble is with spending longer is that when you get to the more complicated parts, you're going to run out of time. Okay. Okay. Part 4. 2 emails. An informal email to a friend and a more formal email to someone you don't know. This is the easiest part, of course. This is very easy, okay? This is the first part where you just fill in a form. Okay, what you need to be careful with here is the use of capital letters. So your full name, your name has to have capital letters. Your city has to have capital letters, okay? Also, your language has a capital letter. And as you can see, it's got interests, 3 interests. If you do not have 3 interests, invent them, okay? All right, notice as well, here where it says month, write in full. Okay, I've seen people where they actually write the number, which is what we would normally do, but here they're asking you to write it in full, so you need to write the month, again, with a capital letter. But do not write it all with capital letters. Only capital letters where they are needed, not all the time. Okay, this is part 2. Here, for example, you're doing a language course, fill in the forms, write in sentences, use 20 to 30 words, you have 7 minutes. Okay, so this again, be careful with the number of words. Grammar, punctuation, and spelling. The text that we have here has 30 words. So as you can see, 30 words are not very many. Okay, but do not write less. Well, you can write less, but a few less, and do not write more. Okay, it's important not to write more words than they ask you to write. Okay, so it's between 20 and 30, not 35 or 40. Okay, this is part 3. Here, you're in a chat room, so the language that you're going to be using will be informal. So you get the 3 questions. What happens here is that they give you the first question, you answer the question, and then you click post. Okay, and then when you've clicked post, you get the second question. And then you click again, and then you get the third question. Okay, it's important here to make sure, again, that you have enough words, and make sure that your grammar and your spelling and everything is correct before you hit post, because you will not be able to change it once you've clicked post. Okay, but you get the first question, click post, second question, click post, then the third question, and click post. Here they say 10 minutes. As it says here, don't go off topic. Make sure you answer the questions. This is very important. Okay, so you must answer the questions. You're in a chat room as well, so you're supposed to be talking to a person. So it's important to interact with that person, actually respond to the person. So if he says his name is Carlos, well, dear Carlos. Okay, so don't just dear friend or not mention him at all. Okay. Okay, this is part 4. Okay, and this, as you would expect, is the most complicated part. Okay, here you have to write. You're a member of a sports club. Here it says, on your last visit to the club, you saw the notice below. So here you have this notice. And if you look here at the bottom, it says write an email to a friend. So you write an email to a friend, while write your feelings about the notice and suggest possible alternatives. Write 50 words. You have 10 minutes. So you have 10 minutes to write 50 words to your friend. And this is going to be to your friend, so it's going to be informal. Okay? And again, remember to give your friend a name, not dear friend. Okay? Dear Jaime, or whatever his name is. Okay, he can be Spanish, okay, but you have to write to him in English. Okay, it also says, also write an email to the customer service team explaining your feelings about the notice and suggesting possible alternatives. Write between 120 and 150 words. Here, of course, you are writing to an authority, and here your email has to be formal. Couldn't think of the word, sorry. Has to be formal. So your language has to be formal. do not use contractions. So often I get people when they write contractions. So I'm, it's not I am, it's I am. Okay, so you must be careful with the language. Start with dear sir, dear madam. Okay, and if you don't know the person's name, write yours faithfully. Okay, so some people write best regards, which is fairly formal, but I think you're better off to write dear yours faithfully at the end. Okay, that is the most difficult part, as you can imagine. Okay, and this will be really, when you're doing this part, this is where you'll get the difference between the B2 and the C in the general. Okay, so if you can show that you know the difference between informal and formal language. Okay. Okay, be careful with. So make sure you follow instructions and answer the questions. This again is very, very important. So often I often give the last part for homework to my students, and they write emails which are quite formal, but they write about whatever they want, which of course you cannot do. You must follow the instructions. You must answer the thing that you're given. Okay? Read the question and understand what you're required to do before writing. Again, don't write too much. So you cannot write 160 words. It can't be more than 150. Okay? Be careful with your grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Okay? Keep to the word count, as I say, and focus on accuracy. Use a variety of sentence structures. Write in sentences and paragraphs. Remember to capitalize months, cities, countries, and names. And don't use SMS spelling. Okay? It has to be real spelling. Okay? Okay, the listening. The listening is you have up to 50 minutes. Okay, as I said before, you have between 25 and 50 minutes. So here you have all 25 questions. Use the 4-option multi-choice format, as you've got here. Each listening audio has a single question. You may listen to the question a second time if you need to, but no more. So you'll notice here you've got the question and it says play, and you've got the 4 possible answers. When you start, before you hear the actual listening, person, when I did it, it was a man, who reads the question and then reads the 4 possible answers. You then listen to the listening, the conversation, which can be a monologue or a dialogue. And then the man, in my case it was a man, repeats the 4 possible answers. Okay? So he reads the question, he tells you the possible answers, you listen, and then at the end of the listening, he gives you the possible answers again. Okay? And then if you want to listen again, you click play. I think the important thing here is to move the mouse away from where it says play and don't touch it, because if you get a twitchy finger, you might accidentally hit play and then you'll hear it again and you won't be able to hear it a third time. So you can only hear it twice. Okay? I think it depends how well you've understood the listening. It is not necessary to listen to the man repeating the answers again. So when you listen to it, if you don't need to listen to him, you can just click play and listen again. Okay? Okay, so here, this is typical. Okay, here we have some more questions. Okay, some tips. If you feel nervous, like me, breathe deeply and relax. Okay. Oh, you see, I feel nervous. Okay. Again, listen carefully to the instructions. Okay, it's always very important to listen to the instructions. And when you listen to the question, read the question as well. So you listen to the question and read the question. So be very careful with the question that you're actually answering the question, because it could be, what does the woman think of something, and you're listening to a man, and you could get lost on what the man thinks. Okay, so be very careful with who you're answering, with who you're asking for. Okay, here, read the questions carefully before you listen. Okay. Here, important here, there are no penalties for a wrong answer. So it's not, if you get it wrong, they don't take one away from your score. Okay, so answer all the questions. Okay, so, I mean, you have 4 choices. You've got a 25% chance of getting it right, even if you're not sure. Okay, so check your answers by listening again. So if you're very sure, you don't need to listen again. You can go straight to the next listening. Okay, but you do have 25 listenings, and 25 listenings is quite a lot. Okay, and you can easily, I don't know about you, but my concentration span is not very good, and you start thinking about dinner tomorrow or something like this, and you don't listen to what's being said. So be careful with that. Okay. The reading. The reading is 30 minutes. The reading paper has 4 parts. So the first one, you choose words from a list to complete sentences. The second, you have to put sentences in the correct order to form a story. The third, you complete a text by selecting the correct word from a list. And in the fourth, you match a series of headings to a number of paragraphs which form a long text. As you would expect, they get more difficult. So the more difficult they are, the higher the number. Okay, this is number 1. Sorry, I keep pressing the wrong one. So in this task, you must select the appropriate word from a drop-down list. You should complete this task in about 3 minutes. Okay, really this is about A2 level, so it's really easy. Okay, as you can see, again, we have this gap with the part in green. You click on the part in green, and the words come down. Okay, and you click, then you decide which is the correct word. It's the same word in each, same list of words in each set. Okay, here I think what you need to understand here is the sentence. Okay, it's important to understand the sentence. Okay, and be very careful with the words that go before and after the word. Okay, so like especially with these modals, with must. So if you've got 2, it's going to be have, and things like this. Okay. Okay, part 2. Here you have a story. Okay, in part 2 you have a story, but the different sentences are in the wrong order. So you need to click on the sentence which you think is number 2, drag it and drop it in that place. When you do that, the other sentences will change position. Okay, the first one is normally done for you. Okay, this story about Alfred Hitchcock is there's a tricky one here because one of the sentences begins with at the start, and you think, oh, that must be it, but it's not. Okay, so if you get this one, you know it's not that one. So I don't know if you can actually see it. So it says at the start, which is in fact the third sentence. But you click on the sentence, you drag it into position, the others change position. Okay, and then you click on what you think is the third one. Okay, here you need to, so you have to sort the sentences into the correct order to make a story. Do this by clicking on a sentence and dragging it to its position. Okay, read all of the sentences carefully first, then decide on the order. The first sentence, as I said, is identified for you. When you've done it, when you've finished, when you think you have them all in order, I think then it's important to read the whole story to make sure that it makes sense and that it flows correctly. Okay, and that's part 2. Part 3. Here in part 3, in the third task, you must select a word from a group at the bottom of the screen in the green boxes and drag the appropriate word into each of the 7 empty boxes in the text. As you can see, there are 10 word options and only 7 spaces. Okay, here I think it's important, it's a good idea to read the whole thing through, okay, and then decide which you think is the correct word for each gap. Again, be very careful with what comes before and after. Okay, so make a note, make sure you understand which words go before and after that particular word. Okay, this is part 4, as you would expect. This is the most difficult part. Here you have a long text. Okay, you need to scroll down the text on the right, okay, to read the different paragraphs. So you need to read the different paragraphs and you decide on the headings. Again, if you look there on the left, you have the green arrow. In each box, you have the whole 7 headings, and you choose which is the correct heading. Okay, I can't remember now whether it's 7 or 8, but there is one heading extra. Okay, and normally the extra heading will be very similar to the one that you need. So you have to be very careful with that. As I say, I've done the teachers and I've done the advanced, and to be honest, I found the text in the teachers more difficult than the similar text in the advanced. I found it easier to decide which was the correct heading in the advanced than in the teachers. So this is can be very difficult. Okay. Again, this is the one that will get you the C mark if you get this correct. Okay. So as it says here, read the main text carefully, but as quick as you can. Then carefully read the headings. Do all this before starting the task. Look for clues to connect the headings to the paragraph, because there might be similar words, ideas, or topics. Okay, so there is this with the similar words. So there could be similar ideas, similar words in one of the headings, which is not exactly the heading that you need. Okay. Bless you. Here we'd have it all, so I don't need to watch it. The tasks increase in difficulty, as you would expect, from part 1 to part 4. Okay. Watch the clock and administer your time properly. Oh, that reminds me that in the writing, when I say you have to use the correct number of words and don't go over, the good thing about the exam when you're doing the writing is it actually tells you how many words you've written. So you don't have to worry about counting the words. Okay, so the computer tells you how many words you've written. Okay, watch the clock and administer your time properly, because, as I say, the first one is very easy. They give you 3 minutes to do the first one, and I think most people, when I've done it in the courses, most people finish that in a minute. So it's easy. But the last one can be very difficult because you've got to read all of those. Okay. Don't get stuck on a question and spend too much time on it. Do all the questions, or at least as many as you can. Don't read intensively. I'm not sure about this piece of advice, because I think especially in the last one, to get those headings right, you need to read intensively. Okay, so when you read it first, you read through quickly. But to be sure of the headings, I think it's important to read intensively. Okay. Don't worry if you don't understand a word. You may not need to use it. So if there's a word you don't know, don't worry too much about it. There's nothing you can do about it now anyway. If you don't know it, you don't know it. Okay? Don't worry if you don't know anything about the subject of any of the texts, which is nice advice, but of course it's much better if you do know something about it. Okay, speaking. What are the examiners looking for? They're looking for grammar and vocabulary. They're looking for good pronunciation. Okay, I have been told that although it's done by teachers, the teachers are not teachers here in Spain, so they may well not understand Spanish pronunciation. Okay, those of us that have been for a long time know what you want to say when you mispronounce a word, but they may well not. Fluency. Be careful with hesitations and stops, but don't talk too quickly. Try to paraphrase. Structure. You should be easy to follow and sound coherent. I think that the speaking is the worst part of this exam. As a native non-speaker, I found this the worst part of the exam. Okay, the worst part of it really is because you are talking to a computer. You are not talking to a person. So there is no interaction. They're not nodding at you or showing that they've understood what you've said or anything like this. Also, you have to start, you hear a beep and you have to start talking. Okay? And you have to continue talking until the time is up. It's okay if you stop a couple of seconds early, but you can't stop like 30 seconds or 10 seconds early, because you will, I can't say fail, but you will get a very low mark. Okay? It's also important not to as we so often do when we're talking. Okay, so these are important things to remember. So don't stop. Okay, do not and ah, and do not scream or do anything like this. Okay, so you need to start talking straight away and not stop until it's finished. Okay, the speaking test again has 4 parts. I keep forgetting. Okay, I keep forgetting to click this. Okay. So here, again, as it says here, it's important not to talk too quickly as well. Okay, so not blah, 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 blah. Okay. Okay, let's see if we've got it all. Okay, so part 1. Part 1 is giving information about yourself. In this task, you must respond to 3 questions on personal topics. You should talk for 30 seconds per question. Okay, which doesn't seem like a very long time, but if you're not used to it, it can seem a long time. Okay, what I get my students to do with the speaking in the course that we give in Alcalá is to actually record themselves on the phone. So you've probably got to be able to record yourself on the phone, and then you can hear the mistakes that you make, and you can listen back later to see how you sound. Okay, so this is what anybody can do this. You can all do this at home and try it. Part 2, describe and compare. You are asked to describe a photograph and then answer 2 questions related to the topic in the photo. You are expected to talk for 45 seconds per question. Okay. Part 3, describe, compare and speculate. You are asked to compare 2 pictures and then answer 2 questions related to the topic. You are expected to talk for 45 seconds for each question. Here, of course, in these 2, you're talking about the photo, and the first is quite easy because you're describing the photograph. In the second one, you're comparing the photographs, but the questions that are related to it become more complex, as you would expect. Okay. Part 4, discuss an abstract topic. You see a picture and are asked 3 questions related to the topic, illustrated in the picture. You have 1 minute to prepare an answer, and you can take notes. You're expected to talk for 2 minutes. So this here really is the only time that you can take notes. In the other parts, you cannot take notes, but here, yes. Okay.
Please come back to previous 3 questions.
So it's better don't finish before the second speed, or it's better to talk, to keep on talking.
As I'll show you in a minute, when we get to the next one, you can see it shows you the time, so you can see how long you have left. Okay, so it's best to try and finish just before then, rather than be talking when it finishes. No? Okay. Okay. Right, so as you can see here, so you've got it tells you how many seconds and what you've got left, okay? So you can see it moving along, and you can see, so you can finish what you're saying. You can try and finish at the end of a sentence rather than halfway through what you're saying. Yeah? So this kind of thing. Okay, so part 1. In this part, I'm going to ask you 3 short questions about yourself and your interest. You will have 30 seconds to reply to each question. Okay. Normally they're talking about yourself, but if you can see here, the third one, it says, what's the weather like today? Well, what's the weather like today? Well, it's cloudy, or it's sunny, or it's raining. We don't normally go into great detail. For me, at least, to talk 30 seconds about the weather is quite a long time. And I'm English, and we always talk about the weather. So okay. So, as I say, this is a good thing you can practice at home, practice on your phone, you can time yourself and see what it's like talking for 30 seconds or 45 seconds. Okay, so here, part 2. In this part, I'm going to ask you to describe a picture, then I will ask you 2 questions about it. You will have 45 seconds for each response. Begin speaking when you hear this sound, and the sound is a beep. Okay. So first of all, as it says here, describe the picture, which is the relatively easy part. Okay. So you can talk about, describe the people, what they're wearing, how old you think they are, what they're doing, what you think they are doing. If it's not very clear the situation, you speculate. Okay. So it looks like a Christmas dinner to me because they appear to be eating turkey or something like this. Okay, so it's perfectly okay to speculate and say what you're doing and how many people there are and so on. Okay, so here, why is it important to celebrate special occasions with family or friends? And the last one would be about here in Spain. So tell me about a celebration in your country. Okay, so it's going to be something a bit more personal, the last one. Okay, here, part 3. I've done it correctly. Okay, part 3. In this part, I'm going to ask you to compare 2 pictures, and I will then ask you 2 questions about them. You will have 45 seconds for each response. Begin speaking when you hear this sound. Okay, remember here, so you have 2 pictures. Remember to talk about the top picture and the bottom picture, not the first picture and the second picture. Okay, so it's important to say top and bottom rather than first and second, because which is the first? Okay, so tell me about what you see in the 2 pictures. So you describe the 2 pictures, compare them. Okay, all right. Which of these 2 places would it be better to bring children up in? And what would it be like to live in these 2 places? Notice that both of these have the question, would. What would it be like? Okay, what would it be like to... So you need to use the conditional in this. So here it says, practice comparing the different things, for example, cities or 2 houses, focus or describing their advantages and disadvantages. Again, you can go to the internet and get some pictures and practice doing this at home. Okay, part 4. As you would expect, this is the most difficult part, okay? But in some ways it's the easiest part because you can make notes, okay? So they give you 1 minute preparation time. As it said, when the questions have been heard, the voices tell you to have 1 minute to prepare your responses. You will also be told that you may take notes. So, as I say, when you go in, they give you this sheet of paper with your codes and what have you on it, and you can make notes on that piece of paper, okay? You cannot take any other paper, books, or anything like this with you. Another thing that they do when you go in is they will take your phone away from you. Okay, so you cannot cheat. Okay, they will take your phone away. You're not allowed to take in laptops. You have to leave that in a corner if you have a laptop. If you have one of these super duper watches, they'll take that away from you as well. Okay, so you be careful with your technology. But you are allowed to take a pen, obviously, and you can make notes for this part, which in some ways makes it easier. Okay? But remember to make notes and not say, I would say blah, 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 blah. Not to write down what you're actually going to say, but to make notes and use those notes. Because you've done 30 seconds for the first, you've done 45 seconds for the second and the third, I think it is, and then this one is 2 minutes. And 2 minutes is quite a long time to be talking into a machine. Okay? Okay. So here with the speaking, be careful not doing a proper sound check. It says to be careful, but I think because the speaking is the first thing that you do, everybody makes sure that it's correct right at the beginning, and the supervisor will help you if you have any problems. Okay? Okay. Not speaking clearly, so you must speak clearly.
You must not mumble.
Okay. And not answering the questions. I think this is true in all parts, in all exams, is to answer the question. So not just go off on a tangent on your own. Okay. Giving very short answers. Be careful with not giving very short answers. I've done it again. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry about this. Okay. Do not overuse words such as and so. Speaking in simple sentence lists and not using a variety of sentence structures. So your vocabulary must be varied, okay, because I want to see the extent of your vocabulary, how good you are. Okay, and as it says here, good luck. Okay, so that is the general and the teachers. The difference between the general and the teachers is that in the teachers' exam, they talk about teaching, they talk about children and things like this, which if you're a teacher is something that you're going to be familiar with. Okay, whereas general is much more general. Okay.
Sorry.